If you really hated my first talk, you must be pretty sick of me by now. But this is it. This is the last time you'll have to sit through what I have to say. And I've got slightly more time according to the schedule, which went out the window long ago. So I brought along an additional video I could show you, and that will still leave a reasonable amount of time for questions. So this is relevant to questions about the internet and is also relevant to something the very next session. So that has emboldened me to show you this video, which starts now. Our last video showed how Wikipedia isn't just radically democratic, it's radically meritocratic. Wikipedia's democracy isn't swamped by vandals and trolls because of what I call its middleware, or if you like, its meritware. To gain authority, first you slowly earn your stripes. Social media is very democratic too, open to anyone. But it doesn't reward merit. Instead, platforms chase profits by stoking rage. So authority goes to those who shout the loudest. It's a shoutocracy. But how could we build a meritocracy inside social media? It's easier with Wikipedia because it just reports the truth. So it's sublimely fluent regarding the facts about Donald Trump. It doesn't even try to tell us if he's any good. Though we should be able to agree on how the world is, what matters most is how it ought to be. There, we want different views. Then, once we understand each other, we can decide on some place we can all live with. We can build algorithms to help build bridges between different views based on their merits. One algorithm that does that would amplify contributors who are best thought of by those who disagree with them. No wonder algorithms like that are called bridging algorithms. By building bridges between different views, they'd help rebuild the middleware of democracy. Trouble is, building bridges doesn't increase profits. That's one reason why Twitter founder Jack Dorsey thinks social media is a public good, which should be managed for social benefit, not private profit. But that's a long way off. Meantime, there's a world of institutions in the arts, education, research, driven by cultural missions rather than profit, like galleries, national broadcasters, universities. They should also help build the middleware of democracy by pioneering pro-social, merit-promoting social media. Even large companies run employee social networks, and they too have an interest in fostering collective sense-making within their walls. They too live or die by building the middleware, the meritware, of good, disciplined discussion within their workforce. And by doing that, they build a better future for us all. I finished that video after I had a conversation with someone many in this room will know of, Vint, Cerf, who works at Google, and it was one of the principal engineers working on the internet. And he's spent some of his time trying to answer that question. Well, I helped build social media. Should I be trying to do something about fixing it? And we had a good conversation, but he kept coming back to questions of how can we regulate social media. Now, I'm not against regulating social media, but I think, but that's kind of playing the old game in a sense. And what I'm trying to say is that if we could incubate what it could be like you at least have something concrete to look at while if you ever get the political power and the capability of actually taming the beast that's out there wrecking our world. Anyway, towards the the reason you see the Google logo appear on the second corporation that I instanced in that video is that towards the end of the conversation, he sort of said, "Hey, I think you're onto something." I said to him, you know, Google has an interest in high quality discussion, dialogue, debate, argument within its walls, and it could apply itself to building something like that, and then it could sell it to other corporates. And he said, that's a very interesting idea, we must stay in touch. I was very pleased about that, and he got a logo in my video. So that's the backstory anyway. So I will go on to the final video that I came to show you, and then we will have some time for questions, even if John tries to stop us. In these final two videos, we look at institutions invented centuries ago to guard against the very problems we have today. In ancient Athens, 50 citizens ran the city, preparing agendas for the assembly of the people and implementing its decisions. To prevent elite domination, the 50 had to be just like other citizens. So they weren't elected, but chosen by lottery, as we choose juries today. As Aristotle put it, real democracy meant citizens taking turns in governing and being governed. He'd think our system today is oligarchic, dividing us into politicians and bureaucrats who govern, and we the people who are governed. We can make politics fit for human habitation again by putting everyday people like you and me back in the centre. We need a standing citizen assembly chosen by lottery. In our system, laws are passed when they win a vote of the lower and upper house of the legislature and the assent of the head of state, a monarch or president. So I want the citizen assembly to insert itself into that process, voting on any issue the other houses do. Even without any formal power, they could meet, deliberate and vote on the same issues before the legislature. Then we could all see any difference between politicians' votes and the considered opinion of the people. This would make it harder for politicians to obey their parties and funders ahead of us. We'd be here all day waiting for our elected representatives to create such a house. So let's get it started with private donations. Once established, it could start building its role in our constitution. It could seek permanent government funding like the other houses. I'd like to see it campaign for real power in holding elected representatives to account. Let's say Congress kept dragging its feet on stronger background checks for guns. The House of Citizens could deliberate and vote on the issue themselves. If they disagreed with Congress's stance, they could shame them and call for them to vote again, this time by secret ballot. And they could campaign to have that power legislated. Those arrangements would have made Britain's Parliament more responsible in approaching Brexit, Australia's Parliament more serious about pricing carbon emissions, and America's Congress more responsible on gun control. They'd help America return to its tradition of deals across the aisle to solve its problems, rather than create new ones. As we saw more of the People's Branch, it could seek other powers to ensure the independent appointment of judges and senior officials, powers to ensure that electoral boundaries are fair, as ordinary folks do right now in the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. We could do this in any developed country. We can do it now. Then, ordinary people like you and me would once again become integral to the checks and balances We need for real democracy, government of the people, for the people, by the people, not to perish from the earth. There you go. So we've got some time for questions.
I'll grant that. All right. Thank you, Nicholas. So it's the least we could do. All right. We've got a question here.
So the problem with Greek democracy was it was run by the citizens, but not everyone was a citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Women weren't. They notoriously had a lot of slaves to do the sort of low-level work. So there wasn't exactly equality. In the end, if you see, the citizens are a sort of restricted group of people who come from a certain background.
Yeah.
So what? How?
Well,
how
you caught me out. You caught me
future?
out proposing that we have a democracy, that we bring back slavery, and that our democracy is only involves male citizens.
Hang on. That's Elon Musk's position, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. The past was different. We can take from it what we want to take, and insofar as telling me that makes it harder for me to tell my story, then I guess that's really because the slaves did the work and the women did the work. So the question is, do we have a do we have a society, do we have an economy where we can do the work and everyone can have a vote? And I think the answer to that is yes, we can see that right now. That's the system we have right now. Everyone's got the vote. Adults have got the vote.
So, yeah, my question about the makeup of this House of Citizens.
Yeah.
So you've got your House of Reps and everyone's got their own network. They've got the people working for them.
Yeah.
The big problem I have with what you're proposing is that if you just put individuals into the mix, it'll turn into a Google or a Unity toxic forum where people start to form, you know, the toxic behaviours that Google's not going to productize what they've got because they've got too many problems.
Oh, hang on.
So
is Google, are you referring to the first video I showed in this session?
Yeah, I'll take that. Let me retract that because it's a bit confusing to the question. The question is, rather than saying individuals in this House of Citizens, what if citizens could bring their own mini networks, like actually allow teams to be part of the citizens? Because it just strikes me that if you're saying everyone's got to start building their networks from scratch as individuals, they're not going to be as empowered as if people who are already in teams are able to join the House of Citizens for a period.
Well, yeah, the people in teams, that's what runs our current system. So they're doing pretty well. It's the people who don't have teams that I'm trying to involve in our democracy. Yeah,
so I'm just wondering if the citizens themselves could be empowered.
Well, the citizen, if you're a person chosen at random and you are in this body, you will have your team and you'll talk to them and you'll say at the next barbecue or whatever or the next dinner with your family, in 15 minutes time, Anthony Albanese wants us to vote on social media. So the networks are there. If we try to start with teams, then we end up with a body that is not representative. We end up with a body of people who have teams already, and that's activists, and that's how we run our democracy right now. We have activists representing the mining industry. We have activists attacking the mining industry. They've each got their teams. I'm not trying to paint a picture where you have kind of frictionless democracy, but I am trying to say that that's actually the way we all think about politics now, and it's highly toxic. And we need to socialise and federate these things that are organised in teams and then whisked across the attentions of the hoi polloi of the people using comms directors. That's roughly the system we have now. And when you bring people together to address the point you introduced and then kind of withdrew, They certainly don't coagulate into a group, into groupthink. Absolutely the opposite. What happens is what happened with Chris and Finbar, which is they stay, well, Chris and Finbar is a remarkable example because Finbar changed his mind. What is more typical is that people don't change their mind very much. They compromise to some extent, and but the massive difference, and I wish I could show you a film that just shows this so strongly, but it hasn't been released yet. They go from despairing of democracy and despairing of all these completely crazy people who either think vaccines work or these other crazy people who think that they don't work. And they don't change their mind that much. They do it much more than politicians who never change their mind because they're not there to have minds, they're there to carry a vote. They get to love each other. And the immense relief and tears that they feel that they actually do believe in democracy, because this guy down the road who doesn't agree with me and believes in lower taxes and personal responsibility and a whole bunch of other things, he's not a bad guy. He's not a bad guy. I might go and talk to him one day and I'll be buying my building materials from him. Just immensely powerful. The exact opposite of what our system does.
All right, Mel, you had a question?
Thank you. Thanks so much, Nicholas. I just wanted to raise deliberative democracy has been happening in Australia already. I mean, it's been very successful. You showed the Irish example. It's happening in Spain. There's New Democracy who are here, and Change Politics are organisations who have been really pushing this. And there's some really fantastic examples of this happening at a local level. I guess the question is, how do we scale that to a federal and state and territory level?
Well, that's what that video was about. And this may be a secret, but New Democracy runs Change Politics, and it sees it as one of its brands, and it sees me as another one of its brands. Not that it's going to say so, but it's supporting what I'm doing, not with money, but, well, actually maybe with some money, but it's supportive of what I'm doing, but it is taking a more middle of the road approach, and it's supporting many of the citizen assemblies that we've seen. And my problem with those citizen assemblies is I'm in favour of them running, but they're all special purpose, finite time, advisory citizens' assemblies. And as you'll see from what I'm talking about this as activism from the centre, activism not on behalf of some sub-community in our society, but on behalf of our system, which is ailing because it has been colonised by private interests. So that's how I think we can scale it. But we don't scale it by going and seeing powerful people and saying this is a great idea, because what happens is they agree with you and then nothing much happens. And that's essentially what's been happening with citizen assemblies all around the world. They're run, they're very successful. People say terrific. The politicians say that's wonderful. And this goes on and on and on, and it hasn't really... It's not building its way into our constitution. So that's what I'm trying to do.
So democracy that is defined by the vote of the majority doesn't really work as a democracy, because there's nobody to protect the rights of minorities in the group, as by shown, for example, in the recent referendum that we had this year. The other problem that I have with letting every citizen vote is that quite a bunch of Australians or people nowadays get their news and updates through TikTok and social media that is not a relevant or a solid source of information. So whatever they know is probably incorrect because of the sources that they get. So whatever vote they have is probably also flawed as well. Any thoughts on that?
Only that I believe in people's ability. I believe there are no better solutions than getting people to work out what they want. And secondly, what you're referring to, my way of putting what you're referring to regarding the tyranny of the majority is essentially what liberals did in the 19th century. They said we can have a democracy so long as rights are protected. And if you look at rights being protected in the United States, they're protected by a Supreme Court that is politicised and corrupt, and they're protected by a political system which has rank gerrymandering and voter suppression going on. And what I show in greater detail in another video but adverted to there was that if you put those integrity questions, those questions of rights, to the people in an institution built for that, as we built juries in law, they will defend those rights, and they'll defend them more dependably than an elite. Because as Machiavelli said, there are two types of people: il popolo, the people, they just want a quiet life, they want to bring up their kids, and i grandi, the powerful people, and they are insatiable. They will never be satisfied. And so my grander vision is to try to rebuild what we built with modern democracy, to take the sinews of modern democracy off the elites and provide jury-like guarantees of our rights that people can defend, so long as we don't ask them to do that at the same time as voting on their electricity price. That's the expectation they have now. We have now. If we build an institution for people to defend human rights, they will do a better job than our elites are doing.